This week, rocket launchers. Sorry, cats and dogs. This week's quick and simple build will use either a plastic bulb or syringe to force air through your straw contraption to fire a paper rocket into the air. Your kit will include either a plastic syringe or the bulb from an infant's nasal aspirator. Grown-ups, have fun explaining what that is to your kids. We'll start off with the tube from a simple ballpoint pen. The pen's inner diameter is just right to snugly fit a piece of vinyl tubing. Next up, a clip with a really convenient hole in it that's going to help us form a base, some paper straws for rockets, and your syringe or your rubber bulb. From home, you should also find some Scotch tape and some paper cut to about the size of a Post-it note, or even better yet, actual Post-it notes if you have them. Before we start building our kit, I want to point out to everyone that you can have a ton of fun making straw rockets with something as simple as a straw and homemade paper rockets that you launch with your own breath and the straw. We'll learn how to make these rockets at the end of the build. Let's get started by attaching either your rubber bulb or your syringe to the length of vinyl tubing. You should be able to get a really snug fit over the end. You might need to wiggle it a bit, and then afterwards just test to make sure that you've got a good seal by covering up the end of the tube and making sure that no air is escaping. Thread the tube through the hole in one of the handles of the clamp. This part will be facing up, and the other handle will be resting on the ground. This will let you take your hands off of your launcher and keep it pointed in the direction you want as you run and recover all of your rockets. Next up, grab your pen tube and fit it snugly over your vinyl tubing. There you go, that's completely done. Good job! Now let's make some rockets. These paper straws have been cut in half. Find the end that looks like it's been a little bit squished and squish it even further. Now we're going to tape that end closed with a piece of Scotch tape. Watch the way I do it. I find this works really well. It goes on at an angle, is folded over completely to seal the end, and then the leftover sticky bits can wrap around the straw completely. That way you don't need to put an extra piece of tape to seal the sides. If that's a bit tricky, however, you just do you and add as much tape as you need. Now we're going to put it inside the tube and yes! Rocket success! Heads up, you are going to have to experiment with the straws in your kit to see if they all fit properly. Even though they're all the same brand and they're from the same packages, some of them are just too big. I lost a lot of my rockets in the library, and you might lose some of yours in houseplants and behind furniture, so there's an easy way for you to make your own rockets just using paper. I'm using 7cm square Post-it notes, but you can use regular paper. If you're using a Post-it note, put the sticky part face up away from you. Starting with your pen tube lined up at the bottom, slowly roll the paper around it, keeping it fairly tight, but not so tight that you won't be able to slide the tube off when you're finished. If you're using a Post-it note, it's pretty handy because that sticky part will help you hold it closed while you get your tape. You will need to use some tape to close the tube off, and then using the same technique as before, close off the end to make a rocket. Now you can have an endless supply of rockets that will fit over the outside of your tube and will launch in the same way. You might have to experiment a little bit to make sure you got the tension right, and of course you can experiment with heavier and lighter papers. And speaking of experimenting, why not make, a Stegosaurus launcher? Or a penguin launcher? Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, you know what? Oh, I think a Mr. Men launcher would be really, really cool. And what else could we put a launcher on? I don't really know. Full Steam Ahead kits launch nearly every Saturday at the Fort St. John Public Library. They're completely free. Just come and get one.